The oldest known ghost story that involves a house or a haunted house is attributed to Pliny the Younger. And in it, he describes the philosopher Athenodorus having rented an apartment and discovering that the apartment was, unusually cheap. He investigated and discovered that it was supposedly plagued by a ghost. And I've always cherished this story, and I think it's relevant tonight, because what Athenodorus does is he decides to stay and confront the ghost, but he's a little freaked out. So he asks that his writing implements be brought to him, and he decides he'll stay up writing to calm his nerves. And it works, so much so that when the ghost finally appears in a doorway, rattling his chains, Athenodorus is so deep in thought, he's so into what he's writing, that he actually goes, "Hang on a second." Finishes his thought while the ghost just sits there going, rattling his chains some more, and then finally Athenodorus goes with him. And I think in a curious way, it's kind of what we were all up to as writers on one level or another. Even when we're writing scary things, in a weird way, we're sort of holding back the night. I've got a few poems for you. I'm going to start light, and I'm going to get darker. The first one, just to loosen you up, is just about if you've ever lived in a place and looked around, and after you'd been there for a while, you started to see indications, oh yeah, I'm not the first person who's lived here. You start to see the marks of passage of other people, and it dawns on you, a lot of people have lived here before I did. This is called First Nail. I take your portrait down to clean and notice the scar of another hanging, painted over. Whoever lived here before also put a picture on this wall. Looking into the room. It's an old building. I remember the landlord saying that over and over as if it explained something. The plumbing, the tile, the deaths of people we love. And if it really was near 100 years, then there wasn't just one picture before yours. There were many. I've never wanted a time machine so I could stop assassinations or feed French fries to dinosaurs. But I want one now. Want to set it before your lost smile and watch the pictures change. No telling into what. Another person, or maybe 10 raising glasses. A faithful dog, maybe Christ. Of course, there must have been things too. A calendar, a coat peg, a little shelf for a candle. But I bet it was mostly faces, and dear ones. That's what you put on a wall like this. That's who should greet you when you come home after a wrong day. I would stop the machine when the building began to look new, just before the first nail. Then I would run it forward again and make a poem of time, so that every picture, all the saints or sailboats, all the wild-eyed babies, digressed to you. Okay, so what's the word that Danny writes backwards on a door? Red rum, which backwards? Murder. Thank you very much. You're familiar with the expression getting away with murder?
Yes.
Sometimes I think that's half the job in writing, is to just sort of play with, I get a lot of ideas from just sort of playing with popular expressions and ornaments of speech that people don't think about. And I thought, wait a minute, getting away with murder. Like, what if you could? This is, and only say that you'll be mine. Today I finally got away with murder. We took my car, and murder rode shotgun. The sun came too, but kept behind trees like it had a crush on one of us. Murder said, I like all kinds of music. Why don't you play something? So I did. Banks of the Ohio. This one's about you, I said. They're all about me, it answered. When the sun ran out of trees, it ducked behind the sea. We started passing motels, pink and green, white and dirty white. I guess you've been to all of them, I said. Murder smiled. not all. In fact, slow down. I've booked us someplace new. It's 3 hours later, and the Sea View Inn has no view. Only now does it hit me. I'd be a fool to close my eyes, even with murder in its own bed, sleeping like a log, like a forest, like the black and crowded soil. This poem is a last-minute substitution, and I'm going to give you a historical fact, and you might go, really? Really? Actually, there are a few things in here that you might wonder if they're true. They're all true. The title of the poem comes from that convention in painting, that trick of the eye, the trompe l'oeil, where in a two-dimensional plane you create the illusion of three dimensions. But this is about a different kind of three-dimensional rendering. Who was first to trace a dead body in chalk? No one seems to know. One book says it started as a courtesy for the press, a way to photograph a murder without the murder. It isn't procedure anymore, as it contaminates the scene. But an officer told me sometimes people go ahead and trace the body before he even gets there. They've seen it on TV and think it helps. He says police call this a visit from the chalk fairy. And once, he said, there was a witness who couldn't find anything to trace with, so he used popcorn and candy, which he later recovered and ate during questioning. I can't decide if that's artistic genius or just the loneliest thing I've ever heard. Nor can I stop thinking about that first man, because, of course, it was a man who took chalk from a sandwich board or a frightened bartender. I can see him, a beat cop, bored but earnest, a young man with time to kill, while a village doctor dressed in the dark and drove to town. Call this your two-poem warning. This is another one about, living in a place and when things start to just sort of move around and you're like, wait, I didn't put that there, or where did that go? This is called Plunder. I came home and realized somebody had stolen things and left notes in their places. Where my clock had been was a yellow square with the word clock written on it. Likewise, my calendar was replaced with a slip that said calendar, October. As I walked around, I noticed other things gone, bigger things, and the notes were more interpretive. Where the television had hung on the wall was the phrase, fake pain, real evil. My stereo was replaced with round and round like a planet of sound. And my books had been picked over, too. A few titles were switched out for brief summaries of their plots. I could almost appreciate that. However, for my copy of the Odyssey, the thief simply wrote, "A guy comes home from work." I think I handled it pretty well. By that evening, I was saying, hey, it's just stuff. It was the next morning, however, that I found a note that I hadn't seen before. It was on my bedside table, and it said, "The last pure and worthy part of you. God help me, I can't remember what was there." Okay. All right, last one. I thank you very much for your attention. And this one is another one that draws on the themes of horror films and the experience of The Shining, which in a weird way is, among other things, a mother and son story. This poem is called "This Film Has Been Subtitled for the Dead," and it has an epigraph from our long-lost poet, Scott Weinberg. "Strange movie full of death asks us to play ourselves. The dead are born reading lips. They do it badly. To them, life looks like 10 other words. Scene 1. My mother enters the schoolyard and waves to a group of boys, unsure which one is hers. She remembers breakfast and kissing someone small on top of the head, but that was this morning, and who remembers that far? These children, playing in such color, seem remote as paintings, as you reading this. So she frames her lips to call to me, and the words could be open or glory, could be oh my or goodbye. When I answer, my mouth moves so little it looks like I'm just saying when. The dead assume we've said all of this and more, and like love, they believe whatever they're told. If we could look back from the screen, break character for the dark of their all-night theater, we might catch a few nods or hear a cough, even laughter, but no applause. There's only one other scene, and it comes many years later, a montage of stars and seasons. My mother and I are dead and watching the film. We're so moved, having just seen ourselves young, we already love the new characters. Another mother and son, sitting in a car, staring out, waiting for the plot to reveal itself, waiting to be second to speak. Yes, we want to shout. It was exactly like that. But we don't. The secret of the dead is ours now, that we are no longer the target audience. Life is a remake, not a revival. Thank you.